George of the jungle, strong as he can be.
George, I'm so confused. How do I track what direction mortgage rates are going? That's a great question, and we're going to be discussing that in thecreditjungle.com today. This is George Anderson, and thanks for joining. You know, it's kind of interesting. This has been a little bit of an evolving science, if you want to call it. Back in the 90s, we were actually told to follow the 30-year Treasury Bond, and that the 30-year Treasury Bond would most closely correlate or have a correlation coefficient. In other words, when the direction of one commodity will typically follow the direction of another. In other words, if the price of silver is going up, probably the price of copper and gold and other precious metals are also going up as well. And then back in the late 90s, that kind of shifted over to, say, tracking the 10-year bond. And that's because mortgage-backed securities normally aren't held for 30 years. They're held for a shorter period of time. So that 10-year bond seemed to start being a better tool. But we've seen some different things going on in the market right now. And I've got a couple of graphs that I'm going to go ahead and pull up. One of them is showing what the 10-year bond has been doing over the past 6 weeks to 2 months. And then the other graph that we're going to be showing is what mortgage-backed securities have been doing over the past 6 weeks to 2 months. And you'll notice that if we take that trend line back a little bit further, that there's a fairly tight correlation between the two, but they seem to have had a little bit of a disconnect lately. So let me try to explain as best as I can what's going on in the market a little bit. The bond market, first of all, is a huge store of money. It's 3 times larger than the stock market. In other words, there's 3 times as much money in the world invested in bonds as there is in stocks. And there's a lot fewer options there when it comes to the bond market. So they always say that the smart money follows the bond market. Well, the bond market right now is reacting to a variety of different factors, and a lot of them are, world affairs, politics, wars, economic policies, Federal Reserve policies. And what's going on right now is just a little bit of uncertainty about things. But uncertainty in the stock market normally takes money from the stock market into the bond market. So you see the 10-year Treasury actually going down in the interest rate or up in price, and mortgage-backed securities have been going up in interest rate and down in price. And that's kind of an interesting thing. People go, well, how would that happen? Well, what you have is that the 10-year bond is kind of like watching the Dow Jones Industrial. The Dow Jones Industrial is a selection of 30 of the largest corporations in the world, some of the largest corporations in the world, and it's an index that is a weighted average based on what all of those stocks are doing. Well, mortgage-backed securities are just one small component, if you will, of the Dow as far as the bond market is concerned. So you might be invested individually in maybe Walmart or Coca-Cola, which are Dow components, and you could see that the Dow is going down, but maybe Coca-Cola is going up. And you're going, well, why does that matter to me? Well, the overall trend line versus the individual stocks that are in there are not always completely connected. And I subscribe to 2 different services that I pay for annually that track mortgage-backed securities, and with that comes some economic forecasting, some other stuff, and that's where I'm drawing a couple of the charts from here. So I don't want to tell people that your best information is for mortgage rates is on the internet, because it's so hard to be able to really tell what's going on. But you can track the 10-year bond quite easily, and that is a published rate that's very easy to find. Mortgage rates, you're just going to get pummeled with advertisements on that. But anyway, in the short term here, I would still say that overall there's going to be a good connection between the treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. But right now in the short term, there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect. And if you really want to try to watch the rates on your own, call me. If you have a loan, you have a home that's being built, new construction, where you're trying to determine if you want to do a long-term lock or wait until the home's within 60 days or 6 weeks of completion. Those are discussions that we can have, and we can talk about long-term lock options and what are some of the pros and cons of that. But if you're buying a home right now, my suggestion is probably wait until the appraisal comes back, and once if you don't have any appraisal issues, go ahead and get the loan locked. and let's take it from there. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful to understand a little bit of what's going on in the market right now. This is George Anderson. Thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com. You can push button, get Mortgage Professional, and I would love to talk with you about your situation. Have a great day.